"Wait, this is your daughter?" the man asked, his voice breaking the tense silence. I turned, my heels clicking against the marble floor of the private jet terminal. My parents stood frozen by the window, the shock on their faces almost comical. "She's my boss," the man said again, this time louder, as if he couldn't believe it himself. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sound was the hum of the engines outside, waiting to take us to New York. My mom's hand trembled as she tried to adjust her purse strap, her face pale. My dad blinked twice, his mouth opening but no words coming out. I smiled, small, polite, but sharp enough to cut through the air. "Good morning, Mr. Carlson," I said, extending my hand. "I didn't know you knew my parents." He laughed nervously. "I didn't know either. They're my new clients." And just like that, my parents' biggest client, someone they'd been chasing for months, was standing in front of me, calling me boss. Mom swallowed hard. I could see her mind spinning, trying to piece it all together. A few hours ago, she'd called me a disappointment in front of this very man. Now, the same man was waiting to board my jet. And this right here is where everything changed. Hello everyone, welcome to today's video. Let me know where you're watching from. You might just get a shout out in our next story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you love stories where karma hits back hard. Trust me, this one's going to be wild. I guess I should start from the beginning, right? I'm Vivian, 28 years old, from Austin, Texas. I wasn't always the woman who owned a private jet or ran a multi-million-dollar company. I used to be the girl who couldn't do anything right, at least that's what my parents told me. Growing up, my mom, Angela, had this perfect image of what a daughter should be. Polite, married early, working a respectable office job, and always agreeing with her parents. My dad, Stephen, was quiet most of the time, but when he did speak, his words cut deep. "You're wasting your time with that startup nonsense," he'd say whenever I talked about building an app. "You're chasing dreams that don't pay bills." My mom would chime in, "Just listen to your father. Look at Abigail. She's engaged, working at a law firm, making us proud. Why can't you be more like her?" Abigail, my older sister, was the golden child. Everything she touched turned to gold. Or maybe that's just how my parents saw her. I loved her, but I hated how they used her as a weapon against me. Back then, I was living in a tiny apartment, coding late into the night while juggling 2 part-time jobs to keep my dream alive. It wasn't easy, and it definitely wasn't glamorous. I remember nights when I'd cry quietly so my roommate wouldn't hear. Nights when I'd stare at my computer screen and wonder if they were right, if I really was just a failure. But then something happened. One evening, after another fight with my mom, I went for a walk. That's when I met her, an old woman sitting on a bench outside a closed coffee shop. She looked lost, clutching a small paper bag. "Are you okay?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Just tired. Been walking all day trying to find my son. He moved out a year ago and hasn't called." I don't know why, but I sat beside her. We talked for almost an hour. She told me about her life, her regrets, how she wished she had listened to her son instead of trying to control him. Before I left, she said something that stuck with me forever. "Don't let people who can't see your worth convince you it's not there." That night, I went home and made a promise to stop trying to prove my worth to my parents and start proving it to myself. I threw myself into my startup idea. Days blurred into nights. I failed. A lot. My app crashed. Investors ghosted me. Friends stopped replying to my messages because I always said I'm working. But then, on one lucky day, everything changed. A small business owner named Igor saw potential in my prototype. He ran a local delivery company struggling to manage logistics, and my app was exactly what he needed. He became my first client. From there, word spread. One client turned into 10. 10 turned into 50. Within 2 years, my company grew faster than I ever imagined. Meanwhile, my parents had no idea. We hadn't spoken much after our last big fight. They told relatives I'd moved away trying to find myself, which was their polite way of saying I'd failed. Then, out of nowhere, I got an invitation to a business event in Dallas. Guess who the keynote speaker was? Mr. Carlson, one of the top real estate investors in the state. I almost didn't go, but something in me said, "You need to." That night, I wore a simple black dress and carried myself with quiet confidence. After the event, Mr. Carlson approached me. Vivian, right? I've been hearing great things about your company. That conversation turned into a partnership and eventually a contract worth millions. Fast forward 3 months later, and he asked me to join him on a private trip to New York for an investor meeting. Of course, I agreed. But nothing could have prepared me for who I was about to see at that terminal. My parents, standing proudly beside Mr. Carlson, dressed in their best clothes, talking about their new client. When I first saw them, I almost laughed. The universe really has a sense of humor. I watched from a distance as my mom smiled and said she's just a disappointment. Never listens. We're glad Abigail turned out better. Mr. Carlson nodded politely, but his eyes shifted because that's when he saw me walking toward them. And then, Mr. Carlson's eyes widened as he realized who I was. Wait, this is your daughter, he said slowly. And when he added, she's my boss, the silence that followed could have shattered glass. My mom's smile fell. My dad looked like he'd just seen a ghost. I stepped forward, calm and steady. Nice to see you again, I said softly. My mom blinked, still processing what was happening. You know each other? Mr. Carlson laughed nervously. Know her? Angela, your daughter runs the company I just signed with. She's brilliant. I could see the color drain from her face. The flight attendant came over. Miss Vivian, your jet is ready for boarding. I smiled. Thank you. Then I turned to my parents. Shall we? Their jaws dropped. And that's when it hit them. The daughter they'd once called a failure now owned the jet they were about to board. As I walked toward the runway, the wind whipping through my hair, I could almost hear my mom's whisper behind me. She's the boss. But I didn't turn around, because this wasn't just a flight. It was the takeoff of my new life. And just as we reached the jet stairs, something unexpected happened. Just as I was about to climb the jet stairs, I heard my mom's voice, soft, shaky, and unlike anything I'd ever heard from her before. Vivian, wait. Her tone stopped me in my tracks. For years, she'd spoken to me with pride or disappointment, but never with fear. I turned slowly, and for a second, I saw it clearly, guilt. The same woman who once called me a failed daughter now looked at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. My dad, Stephen, stood beside her, silent as ever. He looked down at the ground, hands in his pockets, pretending to check his watch. Classic dad move, avoid emotion at all costs. Mr. Carlson shifted awkwardly between us, clearly realizing he had walked into something messy. I'll give you a moment, he said, before stepping aside toward the terminal lounge. The hum of the engines filled the silence. Mom stepped closer. Vivian, honey, we didn't know. I raised an eyebrow. Didn't know what? That I had a career. Or that your words actually hurt. Her lips trembled. That you'd made it this far. I wanted to laugh, but I didn't. Instead, I looked her straight in the eyes and said, you didn't care to know. For a second, I thought she might cry. But then, the Angela I grew up with came rushing back. Her voice hardened. We were just trying to help you. You were wasting your time with that startup thing. I tilted my head. You mean the company that now pays for this jet? Dad cleared his throat. Vivian, that's not what your mother meant. Oh, really? I shot back. Because 2 hours ago, she told your client that I was just a disappointment. And now, that same client calls me boss. So, tell me, Dad, what exactly did she mean? They said nothing. I could feel the power shift in the air. It wasn't just about money or success. It was about freedom. For the first time, I wasn't the little girl trying to prove herself. I was the woman they could no longer control. But before I could say anything more, I heard a small, trembling voice behind me. Miss Vivian? It was the flight attendant, nervously clutching her tablet. We're ready for takeoff, but the weather team suggests we wait 10 minutes. There's a small storm front moving through. I nodded. That's fine. Give us a few minutes. As she walked away, Mom sighed and whispered, a private jet, Vivian? Really? Isn't that a little excessive? Her tone dripped with judgment, but there was something else beneath it, envy. I smirked. I learned from the best, Mom. You always said appearances matter. She didn't respond. Instead, she looked around the hangar, at the polished floor, the polished people, the life she'd always wanted but never had. I realized then that her constant criticism had nothing to do with me. It had always been about her own fears. She was scared I'd do what she never could, succeed without her approval. Dad finally spoke. "Vivian, we're proud of you," he said quietly. I turned to him, searching his face for sincerity. He looked tired. Maybe he meant it. Or maybe he was just saying what he thought would make things easier. "Are you?" I asked. He hesitated. "Of course. You've done well for yourself." "That's funny," I said, "because the last time we talked, you told me I was embarrassing the family." He looked down again. Silence. The storm outside began to rumble softly. Raindrops hit the glass window, and lightning flashed in the distance. Mom crossed her arms. "You've changed," she said quietly. "Good," I replied. "I was tired of being the version of me that made you comfortable." Her eyes filled with tears. "We didn't mean to hurt you." I almost believed her. Almost. But memories hit me like a wave. Her laughter when relatives compared me to Abigail, her sharp words when I couldn't pay rent, the way she told everyone I'd never figure life out. So I asked, "Then why did you?" She opened her mouth, but no words came out. For once, she didn't have an answer. The silence that followed was heavier than any argument we'd ever had. Finally, Mr. Carlson reappeared, smiling awkwardly. "Everything okay here?" I straightened up. "Perfect, thank you." He nodded. "Good. We should head out. The meeting in New York won't wait." I gestured toward the stairs. "After you." He climbed aboard, followed by my assistant Joshua, who gave me a knowing look, half pride, half disbelief. He'd been with me since the early days when the company was just an idea scribbled on napkins. Then came the moment I wasn't prepared for. My mom took a deep breath, stepped closer, and whispered, "Vivian, can we talk when we land?" I hesitated. There was something fragile in her voice, like she was finally seeing me, not as a disappointment, but as a person. "Sure," I said after a long pause. "We can talk." Her face softened, relief flickering across it. But just as I turned to board, she muttered under her breath, "I still can't believe Abigail didn't get here first." I froze. There it was, the comparison that never died. I clenched my jaw and forced a smile. "Don't worry, Mom. Abigail will be fine. She always is." Then I walked up the stairs, my heels echoing against the metal steps, every click reminding me of how far I'd come. Inside the jet, the air smelled like leather and coffee. My favorite seat by the window waited, and across from it, 2 seats reserved for my guests. My parents sat down awkwardly, clearly out of their element. Mom ran her fingers along the armrest. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Thank you," I replied, buckling my seatbelt. As the engines roared to life, I watched the runway lights flicker in the rain. I could feel their eyes on me, trying to make sense of the woman sitting across from them. Then, as we began to taxi, the pilot's voice came through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're cleared for takeoff." I glanced out the window and whispered to myself, "Let's go higher." The jet lifted smoothly off the ground, the city shrinking beneath us. For a few quiet minutes, everything was calm. The storm had passed, and the sky stretched wide and open. Mom sipped champagne nervously. Dad stared out the window like he'd never been that close to the clouds before. And for the first time, I allowed myself to breathe. This was the calm after the storm, the peace I had worked for, cried for, fought for. But life has a funny way of never staying peaceful for long. Because halfway through the flight, Joshua walked over with a strange look on his face. "Vivian," he whispered, "you're going to want to see this." He handed me his tablet. On the screen was a news alert. I frowned. "What's this?" He hesitated. "It's about your company." My heart skipped. "What about it?" He turned the screen toward me fully, and there, in big, bold letters, were the words that made my stomach drop. Tech CEO Vivian Collins under investigation for fraud allegations. The air in the jet shifted instantly. Mr. Carlson looked up from his laptop. My mom gasped. What is that?" she stammered. I stared at the screen, my pulse racing. "I don't know," I whispered. "But someone's trying to destroy me." The calm was gone. The storm had just begun again. My heart thudded. so hard I could feel it in my throat. The headline glared up at me from Joshua's tablet. Tech CEO Vivian Collins under investigation for fraud allegations. The plane's engines hummed steadily, but inside me everything was chaos. My fingers tightened around the tablet as I read through the article. It was from a well-known business news outlet, and my photo, smiling confidently at a tech conference just 2 months ago, sat right above a paragraph accusing me of falsifying investor reports. I felt my stomach twist. Mr. Carlson leaned forward. Vivian, is this real? No, I said firmly, though my voice trembled slightly. This has to be a mistake. Mom, of course, gasped like she just found out I'd been leading a double life. Oh my God, Vivian, fraud? What did you do? I snapped my head toward her. Nothing. I didn't do anything. Her eyes darted to my dad. Stephen, didn't I say she was moving too fast? This is what happens when you don't listen. Dad frowned. Angela, stop. Let her explain. But I could tell from the way he looked at me, half worry, half disappointment, that he wasn't sure what to believe. Joshua crouched beside me, his voice low. Viv, this article came out 15 minutes ago. Our PR team's already calling. Someone leaked internal data. Who? I demanded. He shook his head. We don't know yet, but the timing's bad. Really bad. I looked out the window, watching the clouds drift by. Just an hour ago, I'd been on top of the world. Now, the ground was crumbling beneath my feet. Mom crossed her arms. You see, this is why you should have stuck with something safe. You had to play CEO, and now look. I clenched my jaw. Mom, please. Not now. But she wasn't done. I warned you, Vivian. You always think you're smarter than everyone else, and now your name's on the internet for fraud. Her words were sharp, meant to wound, and they did. Mr. Carlson cleared his throat. Angela, that's enough. We don't know the facts. She scoffed. Well, the facts are online, aren't they? I wanted to scream. Instead, I forced myself to breathe. Joshua, called the PR team. Tell them to prepare a statement denying the allegations until we figure this out. He nodded quickly, already tapping on his phone. As he walked away, my mom whispered, I knew this would happen. I told you that dream of yours would destroy you. I turned slowly toward her. No, Mom. It's not my dream that's destroying me. It's the people who can't stand to see me succeed. She looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. I turned back to the window, staring into the gray sky. The truth was, I was scared. Not because I thought I was guilty, but because I knew how fast rumors could spread. I'd worked too hard, sacrificed too much, to have it all ripped away by a lie. A few minutes later, Joshua returned. Viv, our legal team says it might be an inside leak. Someone accessed confidential files with your signature. My signature? I frowned. I never signed anything like that. He handed me a screenshot. That's the thing. It looks exactly like your signature, but they're saying the contract numbers don't match the real ones in the system. Forgery. Someone had forged my name. Who would do that? Mr. Carlson asked, concern in his voice. I swallowed hard. Someone who wants to destroy me. Dad leaned forward. Vivian, do you think it could be one of your employees? I thought about it. My company wasn't huge, just 48 people, many of whom I'd personally hired. But still, there was one person who came to mind. Abigail's fiancé, Joshua's former best friend, Ryan. He'd interned at my company for a few months before leaving suddenly, claiming I wasn't ready to lead. He'd made a few snide comments about how family connections don't make you competent. I'd brushed it off at the time. But now, Micah told me he wasn't finished with me. I have an idea who it might be, I said slowly. But I need proof. Mr. Carlson nodded. Get your team on it. If this story spreads, investors will panic. I knew he was right, and I couldn't let that happen. As the jet continued toward New York, I excused myself and went to the small lounge area in the back. I needed space. The hum of the engines was steady, almost soothing, but my thoughts were racing too fast to find comfort. I opened my laptop and logged into our company's encrypted system. Sure enough, there it was, a series of unauthorized downloads from a week ago, all traced to a shared workspace account. But the IP address wasn't familiar. I clicked trace. It was from a location in Dallas. My blood ran cold. Dallas was where Abigail and Ryan lived. It couldn't be a coincidence. Just as I was piecing it together, I felt a presence behind me. Vivian. It was Mom again. I didn't even look up. What now? She hesitated. I shouldn't have said those things earlier. I was just shocked. I raised an eyebrow. You mean the things about me being a disappointment, or about my life falling apart? She winced. Both. I sighed and closed the laptop. You know, Mom, it's funny. You always said I needed to be humble, but you never thought that maybe kindness was just as important. Her face softened. Vivian, I was raised to believe success only came one way. Through safety, through control. I didn't know how to support you without trying to steer you. For the first time, her words didn't sound like an excuse. They sounded human. I didn't want to see you fail, she whispered. But I guess I never realized you'd already succeeded. It wasn't an apology, but it was the closest I'd ever get. I took a deep breath. Maybe someday you'll understand what that means to me. She smiled weakly. I hope so. For a brief second, peace settled between us. The storm outside had cleared, and sunlight broke through the clouds. But that peace shattered the moment Joshua rushed in again, pale-faced. Vivian, he said breathlessly, we have a bigger problem. I stood up instantly. What now? He handed me his phone. A new article had just gone live, this time with video footage. I clicked play. The video showed someone entering my company's office late at night, downloading files from a secure terminal. The camera angle was blurry, but the person's face was partially visible when they turned toward the exit. And when I saw who it was, my heart stopped. It was Abigail, my perfect, untouchable sister. The golden child who could do no wrong. The same sister my parents had compared me to my entire life, caught on camera sabotaging my company. Mom gasped, covering her mouth. No, that can't be her. But it was. There was no mistaking the long brown hair, the red coat she wore everywhere, the confident stride. Dad stared at the screen, speechless. I whispered, she framed me. Mr. Carlson walked over, eyes wide. That's your sister? I nodded slowly, my hands trembling. Mom slumped into her seat, her face pale. Oh my God. The silence that followed was deafening. All my life, they had told me to be more like Abigail. But now, Abigail was the one who had betrayed us all. I looked out the window again, the sunlight blinding my eyes. Everything I'd built was under attack from my own blood. But I wasn't going to let her win. Joshua, I said finally, my voice steady. Call the legal team. We're filing charges the moment we land. He nodded quickly. Already on it. Mom reached out, tears streaming down her face. Vivian, what have we done? I didn't answer, because for the first time in years, I didn't need their validation. I had truth on my side, and a fire inside me that wasn't going to burn out again. The jet landed at Teterboro Airport just outside New York, wheels screeching against the runway like the world itself was protesting what I'd just learned. Abigail, my perfect sister, my parents' pride, had framed me. The moment we taxied to a stop, I unbuckled my seatbelt. My hands shook, but not from fear anymore. From fury. Joshua leaned close. Viv, legal says we can meet them at the hotel. They're setting up a private conference room. Good, I said, because this ends today. Mr. Carlson glanced between me and my parents. I'll give you some space, he said gently, grabbing his briefcase. But, Vivian, don't let anger guide your next move. Let facts do it. Facts. The only thing that ever mattered in business, and apparently in family. As the others disembarked, Mom lingered near the aisle. Her makeup was smudged, and her eyes were glassy. Vivian, she whispered, she must have had a reason. I stared at her. A reason to ruin me? She's your sister. She's a criminal, I snapped. And I'm not going to let her hide behind family anymore. Dad placed a hand on her shoulder. Angela, let's just go. When they stepped off the jet, I stayed back a moment, breathing in the silence. The air still smelled like engine fuel and betrayal. We reached the hotel an hour later. My legal team was already waiting, 3 sharp-dressed attorneys with folders thicker than Bibles. I sat at the head of the conference table while Joshua set up the projector. Here, he said, bringing up the security footage again. This is timestamped 2 nights before the leak. The person used an admin keycard. I leaned forward. Whose card? He zoomed in on the login data. Registered to Ryan Matthews. My stomach turned. Abigail's fiancé. So he used his card, but she's the one in the footage, I murmured. Exactly, said Erica, my lead counsel. Which means conspiracy. If we prove they both participated, we can press both criminal and civil charges. I nodded slowly. Do it. Mom's phone rang just then. She frowned at the screen. It's Abigail. Of course it was. Put it on speaker, I said. She hesitated. Vivian. Now. She tapped the button. Mom. Abigail's voice came through, light and airy, the same voice that used to read me bedtime stories. Hey, I heard about the news. Are you with Viv? Is she okay? Mom's lips trembled. Abigail, sweetheart, tell me you didn't. Didn't what? Abigail interrupted, her tone suddenly sharp. You think I'd ever do something to hurt Vivian? I stepped closer to the phone. Cut the act, Abby. You were caught on camera. Silence. Then a laugh. Cold. You really think you can prove that? Cameras blur, data corrupts. Maybe you should focus on cleaning your company instead of pointing fingers. My pulse raced. Why, Abigail? Why would you do this? Because, she said quietly, you took everything. You were supposed to be the failure, the one who couldn't keep up. And then you made them love you more than me. Mom gasped. Abigail, that's not true. Yes, it is. Abigail shouted through the phone. All my life, you compared us, and she still won. I wasn't going to let her have everything again. The line went dead. Mom dropped the phone like it burned her. Dad sank into a chair. My God. I closed my eyes. The room felt too small, the air too heavy. All I could hear was that last sentence echoing in my head. She still won. Joshua spoke softly. Viv, we can go to the police tonight. No, I said. We're not doing this quietly. They all looked at me. I took a deep breath. She wanted to ruin me publicly. I'm going to clear my name publicly. We spent the next 6 hours building evidence. Transaction logs, email chains, metadata trails showing the files had been accessed from Ryan's laptop. Every piece of proof felt like another nail in their coffin. By midnight, Erica leaned back in her chair. We have enough for a full case. I'll contact the authorities in the morning. But I wasn't finished. Send the footage and statement to our PR head, I said. We go live at 9 a.m. Joshua blinked. You want to release it publicly? Yes, I said. If Abigail wants the world's attention, she can have it. The next morning, my name was all over the internet again, but this time, the headline read, New evidence clears tech CEO Vivian Collins, insider sabotage confirmed. I stared at the screen in disbelief. Relief flooded through me, mixed with exhaustion. Mom and Dad sat across from me in the hotel room, still reeling. Mom whispered she confessed Vivian. She called again after you left. She's turning herself in. I exhaled slowly. Good. Dad rubbed his temples. We should have never compared you two. We made her feel like she had to compete. I looked at them. For the first time, they weren't parents towering over me. They were just people, flawed and broken, trying to make sense of what they'd done. I'm not angry anymore, I said quietly, but I'm done living for your approval. Mom's eyes filled with tears. You don't need our approval, Vivian. You have our respect. That hit harder than I expected. We sat in silence, the weight of years between us finally lifting just a little. Hours later, when the reporters started calling, I walked outside the hotel alone. The air smelled of rain and asphalt. Across the street, a little girl was helping an elderly woman carry groceries up the curb. The sight made me smile. It reminded me of that night years ago when an old woman on a bench had told me, "Don't let people who can't see your worth convince you it's not there." She'd been right. I pulled out my phone, opened a blank note, and typed, "Success without kindness is just noise." Then I hit save. Maybe someday, I'd make that the motto of my company. As I slipped the phone back into my pocket, Joshua joined me. They're saying investors actually increased their funding this morning. You're trending, boss. I laughed softly. Of course I am. Scandal sells. He grinned. So what's next? I looked toward the skyline where the sun was breaking through the clouds. Next, we rebuild. Stronger, kinder, smarter. He nodded. And your family? I thought for a moment. They'll need time. We all will. That evening, my parents joined me for dinner in the hotel's quiet restaurant. No photographers, no reporters, just the three of us, finally talking like humans. Mom reached across the table and held my hand. Vivian, I'm sorry. For everything. I met her gaze. I know. Dad smiled faintly. Your sister's getting help. Maybe one day we can fix what's left. Maybe, I said. But for now, let's just eat. We laughed, a small, tired laugh, but real. For the first time in forever, I wasn't angry. I wasn't scared. I was free. Later that night, back in my room, I stood by the window watching planes take off from the nearby airport. Each one was a streak of light against the dark sky, climbing higher, leaving the ground behind. I whispered, here's to takeoffs, not landings. My phone buzzed with a message from Joshua. Press conference tomorrow. Ready? I typed back, always. I didn't know what the future held. Lawsuits, forgiveness, maybe both, but I knew one thing for sure. I'd faced the worst, and I was still standing. And when you survive a storm like that, you don't just go back to who you were. You become something new, stronger, wiser. The next morning, the world watched. Cameras flashed like lightning as I stepped up to the podium. Behind me was a banner with my company's logo, Etherlink Technologies, and beside me stood my attorney, Erica, cool as ice. My palms were sweaty, but my voice was steady. Good morning, I began, my eyes sweeping across the crowd of reporters. A few days ago, allegations surfaced accusing me of fraud. Today, I stand here with evidence that clears my name and reveals the truth. Joshua handed me a tablet. I tapped it, and the big screen behind me came alive with footage. Abigail sneaking into the office. Ryan using his key card. The evidence was crystal clear. A gasp rippled through the room. I took a deep breath. For years, people told me I wasn't good enough. They said my dreams were impossible. But the thing about people like me, the ones everyone underestimates, is that we don't stop. We don't break. We rise. I paused, letting the words settle. This isn't just about business, I continued. It's about resilience and about what happens when you stop living for others and start believing in yourself. The cameras clicked faster now. I smiled. Justice, I said, isn't always loud. But today it's roaring. As I stepped back, applause erupted. Not from everyone, but enough. Joshua whispered, you nailed it. Erica grinned. You just rewrote your entire story in 5 minutes. I exhaled slowly, trying to process everything. The cameras, the lights, the stares, it all felt surreal. Then I noticed something that made my breath hitch. At the back of the room, standing near the exit, was my mom. She wasn't supposed to be here. I walked off the stage as fast as I could, weaving through journalists until I reached her. She smiled softly. You were amazing. Thanks, I said. But how did you? Mr. Carlson called, she said. He said he wanted me to see what strength looks like. I chuckled. He would say something like that. Mom looked down for a moment. Vivian, I wanted to tell you something before you leave for the next meeting. What is it? She hesitated, her voice trembling. Your father and I went to see Abigail last night. I tensed. How is she? She's angry, ashamed, but I think deep down, she knows she went too far. I nodded slowly. She needs to face what she did. I can't protect her this time. Mom wiped her eyes. I'm not asking you to. I just wanted to say you were right. About everything. For a long moment, neither of us said anything. Then she reached out, her hand brushing my cheek the way she used to when I was a kid. You're everything I hoped you'd be, even if I didn't know how to say it. That was the first time I'd ever heard her say something like that. And just like that, the walls I'd built around my heart started to crack. Later that afternoon, I headed to a meeting at the Manhattan office. The company's headquarters overlooked the Hudson River, a view I used to dream about when I was coding in my cramped apartment back in Austin. Joshua met me in the lobby, a cup of coffee in each hand. Boss, he said, you're trending again. I laughed. This time for something good, I hope. Mostly, he said with a grin. Half the internet's calling you the comeback queen. I'll take it. We stepped into the elevator, and as the doors closed, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from an unknown number. You may have won the battle, but not the war. No name. No context. Just that. Joshua noticed my expression. What's wrong? I showed him the message. He frowned. You think it's from Abigail? I shook my head. No. She's in custody. But someone else might be backing her. He sighed. You really think someone else is involved? I don't think, I said. I know. I opened my inbox and scanned through recent emails. Sure enough, a new one had just come in. Subject line, we know what you did. Attached was a document labeled etherlink_internal_contracts_2019. I clicked it open and froze. The document contained old contracts, real ones, but several had been altered. The signatures, the payment numbers, the dates, all changed just enough to look suspicious. Someone's still trying to make it look like you forged documents, Joshua said, his face tightening. Which means, I murmured, this wasn't just about my sister. It's bigger. The elevator dinged, and the doors opened. Reporters were waiting outside again, shouting questions. I forced a smile, nodded politely, and pushed through. Inside the boardroom, my executives were already arguing. Investors want reassurance, said Mark, my CFO. They're afraid there's more to the story. There isn't, I said. But we need to find whoever's feeding them lies. Erica joined us via video call. Vivian, my team traced the source of the latest leak. You won't like this. I leaned forward. Who? She took a deep breath. The files were sent from inside the Manhattan office. Joshua's jaw dropped. Someone here. She nodded. An employee named Igor Preston. Senior developer. Hired 3 years ago. Igor. He was one of the first people who ever believed in my idea. He'd worked weekends with me, stayed late, fixed bugs I couldn't fix. Are you sure? I asked quietly. Erica nodded. The IP address, credentials, everything. It was him. I leaned back, my heart sinking. Get security. Now. Joshua rushed out while I sat there, stunned. Why would Igor do this? He wasn't family, but he was close. The man who once said, "You're going to change the world, Viv." 15 minutes later, security escorted him into the room. His wrists weren't cuffed, but his face was pale. Vivian, he said, eyes wide, it's not what you think. I folded my arms. Then explain. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I didn't leak the files. I was paid to install a backdoor into the system. That's all. Paid by who? He hesitated. I don't know their real name. They contacted me through an encrypted email. Said they wanted to balance the scales. Joshua frowned. Balance the scales? What does that even mean? Igor's voice shook. They said you stole what wasn't yours. That you didn't deserve what you had. Mom's voice echoed in my head. She must have had a reason. Someone wanted revenge, but not just personal revenge. This was coordinated. I took a deep breath. Igor, do you still have the emails? He nodded weakly. All of them. I was scared to delete them. Forward them to Erica, I said. Now. He did. The subject lines were chillingly specific, each one referencing private details about my company and even about my personal life. Then I saw the sender's alias, Evangeline. My pulse quickened. Who is Evangeline? Igor shook his head. I never met them. Erica's voice came through the speaker. Vivian, this alias has been used in at least 3 corporate sabotage cases in the past year. Whoever this is, they're a professional. I stared at the screen. Abigail might have started the storm, but someone else was fueling it. By the time the meeting ended, the city lights were flickering on outside. I stood at the window, watching the skyline glow gold and white. Joshua joined me quietly. We'll find them, he said. I nodded, but my chest felt heavy. This isn't just about business anymore. It's about control. Someone wants to break me. He smiled faintly. Then they should have picked someone else. I laughed softly. You really believe that? Absolutely, he said. You've already survived worse. I turned to look at him, my reflection in the glass faint but strong. He was right. I'd been underestimated my whole life. By my parents. By my sister. That night, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, the name Evangeline burned in my mind like a brand. Someone out there wanted me destroyed, and they were good at it. At 2 a.m., I was still in my office, a single desk lamp throwing long shadows across the room. Joshua had gone home hours ago after forcing me to eat something, but I couldn't stop digging. Emails, access logs, payment records. I was determined to find the thread that would unravel this web. And then I found it. One of the payments Igor received came from a company called Redridge Consulting. I knew that name. They'd been one of the firms Abigail's fiancé, Ryan, had worked with before leaving my company. I clicked deeper and saw something that made my stomach drop. Redridge wasn't a consulting firm at all. It was a shell company registered in Delaware, linked to multiple data breaches across several states. Someone was using my family drama as camouflage for something much bigger. I sent the file to Erica with the subject line, "Found our ghost." Then I leaned back in my chair, staring at the city lights flickering outside my window. The war had officially begun. By morning, my phone was buzzing nonstop. Reporters wanted interviews. Investors wanted reassurance. And then, just as I was about to step into a board meeting, an unknown number flashed across my screen. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. "Hello." A soft female voice came through the line. "You're not as clever as you think, Vivian." I froze. "Who is this?" She laughed lightly. "Call me Evangeline. Everyone else does." My pulse spiked. "What do you want?" "Oh, nothing you can give me anymore," she said. "But I want you to understand something. Your fall isn't about money. It's about balance. Balance. You climbed too fast, too high. You made enemies, Vivian, powerful ones. I'm just the messenger. You think I'll let you get away with this?" I snapped. Her tone was calm, almost amused. "You already did. I'm not your sister, and I'm not stupid enough to get caught on camera. Enjoy your brief peace while you can." Then the line went dead. I stood there for a long time, phone still pressed to my ear. Whoever she was, she knew things, details only insiders would know. Joshua came running into the office seconds later. "Viv, we traced another IP ping from last night. Someone's inside the network again." I handed him the phone. "Evangeline just called me." He froze. "She what?" "She knows who I am. What I've done. She said she's the messenger." His eyes widened. "Messenger for who?" "I don't know," I said quietly. "But I'm going to find out." We spent the next few hours combing through digital footprints. Every time we got close, the trail vanished. Whoever Evangeline was, she covered her tracks like a professional hacker. By late afternoon, Erica called with an update. "Vivian, I had a contact in the FBI run a name check. Evangeline's been tied to several corporate espionage cases. But there's something strange. She only targets companies founded by women." I blinked. "You're saying she targets female CEOs?" "Yes. She hacks, leaks, manipulates, and then disappears. Some think she's hired by rival corporations trying to destabilize women-led firms." That hit me hard. So this wasn't just personal, it was systemic. Joshua muttered under his breath, "That's sick." I nodded slowly. "Then we're not just fighting for me. We're fighting for every woman she's tried to silence." That evening, I called a meeting with my senior team. My parents joined via video, Mom had insisted. "Vivian," she said gently, "we saw the news. Are you sure you're safe?" I gave a tired smile. "Safe is relative these days, Mom." Dad leaned forward. "You need protection. Hire professionals." "I already have," I said. Joshua's coordinating with cybersecurity experts. But this isn't just about defense. I'm going on the offense. Joshua shot me a look. "You mean?" "Yes," I said firmly. "We find her before she finds me again." Mom frowned. "Vivian, that's dangerous." "So is silence." For a second, the old Angela flickered, the controlling, cautious version, but then she softened. "Just promise us you'll be careful." I nodded. "I will." When the call ended, Joshua sighed. "You sure you want to do this?" I met his eyes. I didn't build my life by backing down. The next morning, we flew back to Austin. It felt strange returning to the place where it all began. The small city that once held my failures and now held my empire. Our tech lab was quiet when we arrived, the hum of servers filling the air. My team was already at work tracing new digital trails. Then one of my analysts, Taylor, called out, Boss, you might want to see this. I hurried over. On her screen was a hidden folder buried deep inside our company's drive, one even Joshua hadn't seen before. Inside were dozens of recordings, private meetings, client calls, personal videos of me in my office. Joshua's face went pale. She was spying on you. Taylor clicked on one of the files. My voice filled the room, saying, "We'll announce the New York partnership next quarter." Where did this come from? I asked. Taylor shook her head. The folder was created remotely. Whoever did this had admin-level access, and they logged in from outside the country. Where? Singapore. Singapore. That was where one of our biggest competitors, Vanguard Systems, was based. Everything suddenly made sense. Evangeline wasn't just some rogue hacker. She was working for Vanguard, the same company that had lost 2 major contracts to us last year. Joshua swore under his breath. They're trying to destroy you through proxy. I felt my anger harden into resolve. Not if I destroy their plan first. We spent the next 3 days gathering everything: financial trails, server data, copies of the recordings. Each file painted a clearer picture. Vanguard had funded Redridge, paid Evangeline, and used Abigail's jealousy as the spark to ignite the chaos. By the time the evidence was complete, even the FBI was interested. Erica coordinated directly with federal agents to prepare a full investigation. Mom called again that night, her voice heavy but proud. "You've turned this into something bigger than revenge, Vivian. You're fighting corruption." I smiled faintly. Guess failure makes good fuel. She chuckled. "I used to think strength meant being perfect. But watching you, I think it means standing back up when the world pushes you down." That made me pause. Maybe we were both learning. A week later, I got the call. "Vivian," Erica said, her tone tight. "They've arrested 3 Vanguard executives. They're naming Evangeline as the primary architect of the espionage campaign." "Did they find her?" "Not yet. She's vanished again. But her network's collapsing." I closed my eyes, relief washing over me like rain. We'd won the battle. Maybe not the war, but enough to breathe again. Joshua popped his head into my office. "You okay?" "Better than okay," I said. "We did it." He grinned. "Then what's next, boss?" I looked out the window, where the Texas sun was breaking through the clouds. "Now, we build something untouchable." That weekend, I drove alone to the outskirts of Austin, to the small park where I'd once met that old woman years ago, the one who'd told me not to let others define my worth. The same bench was still there, though worn and cracked now. I sat down, running my fingers over the wood. A little girl walked by, holding her mother's hand. She looked at me and smiled shyly. For some reason, it made me tear up. I whispered, "You'll grow up strong, kid. Don't let anyone tell you who you are." The wind blew gently through the trees, and for the first time in months, I felt at peace. But deep down, I knew the story wasn't over. Evangeline was still out there, and she didn't sound like the type to quit. As the sun dipped below the horizon, my phone buzzed with one new message. "Unknown, round 1 goes to you. But the game's not over." I stared at it, my jaw tightening. I typed back 2 words, "Your move." Then I slipped the phone into my pocket and walked away, the sky glowing orange behind me. Because this wasn't just a fight for my company anymore. It was a fight for every dreamer who'd ever been called a failure. And I wasn't done yet. The text glowed on my phone like a warning flare. "Round 1 goes to you. But the game's not over." For a long moment, I just stared at it. No number, no name, just that same eerie calm in the words, like Evangeline knew she still had the upper hand. I was in my Austin office again, sitting by the window with a view of the river. The world outside looked calm, but inside my chest, everything churned. Joshua stepped in quietly, holding 2 coffees. "You look like you just saw a ghost." "Close enough," I said, showing him the message. He frowned. "She's taunting you. She's reminding me," I said softly, "that this isn't over." He handed me the coffee. "Then maybe it's time we remind her who she's messing with." I smiled faintly. I liked the sound of that. The next morning, we called an emergency meeting with Erica and the cybersecurity team. "She's still out there," I said, pacing across the conference room, "and she's daring us to come after her." Erica tapped her pen against her tablet. We've been monitoring the servers 24/7. No new breaches. But Evangeline's too good to come in through the front door again. She'll find another way. Joshua leaned forward. Then we find her first. We bait her. I turned to him. You mean set a trap? He nodded. We leak something fake. Something valuable enough to catch her attention. Erica frowned. That's risky. So is doing nothing, I said. If we wait, she'll strike again. After a long silence, Erica sighed. Fine. But make sure the fake data looks real enough to sell the illusion. Joshua grinned. Already on it. For the next 2 days, our office became a digital war room. My tech team created a fake internal file titled Etherlink_quantum_patent 2026, a supposed prototype design that would revolutionize data transfer speeds. We uploaded it to a secure but monitored server, one that looked vulnerable to the right kind of hacker. Then we waited. Every hour felt like a year. By the third night, my eyes were burning from staring at screens. It was almost midnight when Taylor burst into my office, breathless. She took the bait. I jumped to my feet. Where is she? Singapore again, Taylor said, fingers flying across the keyboard. Same proxy patterns as before. But she's sloppy this time. She's using a relay in Los Angeles. Joshua grinned. Then we've got her. Erica's voice came through the speaker. Trace it. Don't engage. Let's see where it leads. The digital trail zigzagged through a dozen servers before finally stopping at an apartment building in downtown Los Angeles. Joshua stared at the address. That's near Wilshire Boulevard. I whispered, book me a flight. He looked up sharply. Viv, you can't just... I'm not asking, I said. I'm finishing this. The next morning, we flew to LA. The sky was a bright blue, but my stomach was a knot of nerves. As the car pulled up in front of the apartment building, I saw it wasn't fancy, just a quiet complex with sun-faded paint and a view of the city. Joshua checked his phone. Erica's team confirmed the IP ping from apartment 407. I took a deep breath. Let's go. We climbed the stairs slowly. My heart pounded in my ears. When we reached the door, I hesitated. What if it's not her? Joshua whispered. Then we'll know soon, I said and knocked. Silence. Then footsteps. The door opened halfway and there she was, Evangeline. She wasn't what I expected. Mid-30s, sharp eyes, calm smile. She looked like someone who could blend into any crowd, vanish in plain sight. Vivian Collins, she said softly. I was wondering when you'd come. Joshua tensed beside me. You've been hacking her company. You're coming with us. Evangeline tilted her head. Hacking? Such an ugly word. I prefer correcting imbalance. I stepped forward. You ruined lives. You manipulated my sister. You nearly destroyed everything I built. She shrugged. And yet here you are. Stronger. Smarter. You should thank me. Thank you. I snapped. For tearing my family apart? She smiled faintly. Families break themselves, Vivian. I just give them the push they were already begging for. There was something haunting about the way she said it, like she wasn't just talking about me. Joshua took out his phone. Authorities are on their way. You're done. But Evangeline didn't look scared. She leaned casually against the doorframe. Do you think I'd stay here if I didn't want to be found? My blood ran cold. What do you mean? She handed me a small flash drive. This is what you really came for. I didn't take it. What's on it? She smiled. Proof that you were never the real target. The hallway suddenly felt smaller. What are you talking about? I asked. She looked at me, eyes glinting. Someone paid me to destroy your company. Yes, but they also wanted something else. Information. About your father. Joshua froze. Her father? Evangeline nodded. Stephen Collins has more enemies than you realize. Before I could respond, police sirens echoed outside. Evangeline slipped the flash drive into my hand. Read it before they do, she whispered. You'll understand everything. Then she stepped back, raised her hands, and let the officers take her away without a fight. I stood there, frozen, staring at the flash drive burning in my palm. Joshua whispered, Viv, what did she mean? I shook my head. I don't know, but we're about to find out. Back at the hotel, I plugged the drive into my laptop. A single folder popped up labeled Stephen_projects_confidential. I hesitated. Joshua locked the door. He did. When I opened the folder, there were dozens of documents, emails, contracts, and payment receipts, all linked to a company my father used to work for, Helios Defense Systems. My heart thudded louder with each click. According to the files, my father had been part of a classified government project 20 years ago, something involving AI and surveillance technology. But one of the memos stood out. Project shut down due to internal whistleblower. Suspected leak, Stephen Collins. Joshua leaned over my shoulder. Vivian, are you saying your dad leaked government secrets? I swallowed hard. I don't know. Another document caught my eye. It was a wire transfer dated 3 months ago. The sender's name froze my blood. Reedridge Consulting. The same shell company Abigail's fiancé had used. Joshua, I whispered, Reedridge didn't just fund Evangeline's attacks. They've been tied to my father, too. He stared at me. You think your dad's connected to all this? I don't want to think it, I said quietly. But I can't ignore it. I scrolled further and saw something worse. A photo. It was my dad, standing with a group of men in suits. One of them was Evangeline. Joshua swore softly. She wasn't lying. I closed the laptop, my hands trembling. This isn't about me anymore. It never was. He looked at me, eyes wide. What are you going to do? I took a deep breath. Go home. That night, we flew back to Texas. The moment I landed, I called my mom. Mom, I need to see Dad. Tonight. She hesitated. Vivian, it's late. This can't wait. When I arrived at their house, Dad was sitting in the living room, reading the newspaper like nothing was wrong. He looked up. Vivian, what's this about? I pulled the flash drive from my pocket and placed it on the table. You tell me. His face went pale. Where did you get that? From Evangeline, I said. She says you're part of this. He stood slowly, his expression unreadable. Vivian, you don't understand. Then make me, I said. For a moment, I saw the father who'd once told me to chase my dreams before the man in front of me hardened into something else. He sighed. There are things you're better off not knowing. Dad, I said quietly, I've already had my life torn apart by secrets. I'm not afraid of the truth anymore. His eyes softened, just for a second. Then he whispered, it wasn't supposed to reach you. What wasn't? The project, he said. Helios. It was never shut down. I've been protecting you from it ever since. My breath caught. Protecting me? From what? He looked at me, his face a mixture of guilt and sorrow. From what I created. From what I created. Those words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and poisonous. I stared at my father, unable to speak. He looked older than I remembered, his hair grayer, his hands trembling slightly as he poured himself a glass of water. Dad, I said finally, my voice low. What do you mean from what you created? He sat down slowly, his shoulders sagging. Back when I worked for Helios Defense Systems, I wasn't just another engineer. I was part of a classified project called Aegis. It was supposed to be a national defense AI, an early attempt at predictive threat detection. We wanted to use algorithms to anticipate attacks before they happened. Mom, who had been silent until now, gasped. Stephen, he continued, ignoring her. But it got out of hand. The system started drawing conclusions on its own. It identified people as threats. Civilians, activists, journalists, people who'd never done anything wrong. When I realized what it was becoming, I leaked information to an internal ethics board. I thought they'd shut it down. He laughed bitterly. They didn't. They buried it deeper. My pulse raced. So you exposed them? I tried to, he said. But they found out. I left before they could come after me. But I knew they'd keep an eye on anyone close to me, including you. I shook my head. That doesn't make sense. Why would Evangeline come after me? What does my company have to do with all this? Dad sighed. Because Etherlink's tech, your core encryption system, is built on open source code that used to belong to Helios. They think I gave it to you. I froze. You mean they think I stole military-grade tech? He nodded. And Evangeline? She was one of ours. A contractor. She's not just a hacker. She's part of the cleanup crew Helios uses when someone gets too close. I felt the floor drop beneath me. So she's been protecting the secret all along. Mom whispered, Stephen, why didn't you tell us? He looked at her, eyes glistening. Because I wanted a normal life for once. I didn't want Vivian dragged into the mess I made. But it was too late for that. For the next hour, he told me everything. The failed whistleblowing attempt, the secret payments from Redridge, a Helios front, the people who disappeared after crossing them. It was the kind of story that sounded too wild to be true, except for one thing. Evangeline's message had confirmed it. When he finished, I sat there in stunned silence. So, what happens now? I asked quietly. Dad rubbed his face. Now, we pray they stop here. Do you really believe that? I asked. He didn't answer. The next morning, Joshua showed up at my parents' house with dark circles under his eyes. You need to see this, he said, holding out his phone. On the screen was a breaking news alert. Evangeline escapes federal custody. Authorities launch nationwide search. My stomach dropped. How? They were transporting her to D.C. for questioning, he said grimly. Convoy was ambushed outside Albuquerque. No fatalities, but she's gone. Mom clutched her chest. She's coming for us. Dad's voice was tight. No, she's coming for me. Joshua looked between us. What do you want to do, Viv? I stood up slowly. We don't hide. We finish this. Dad frowned. Vivian, you can't fight them. Helios doesn't play fair. Neither do I said quietly. Not anymore. That afternoon, I called Erica. We need a secure location. Somewhere off-grid. No press, no leaks. Within hours, she arranged a private safe house just outside Flagstaff, Arizona. Desert country, quiet, isolated, perfect for thinking. We drove through the night. Mom slept most of the way, clutching Dad's hand. I stared out the window, watching the empty highways blur past. Joshua broke the silence. You sure about this? No, I said. But sitting still is worse. He nodded. Then we keep moving. By sunrise, the desert stretched around us like an ocean of sand and rock. The safe house was small but sturdy, reinforced with steel and surrounded by surveillance sensors. The first 2 days were quiet. Too quiet. Then, on the third night, the motion sensors went off. I jumped up from the couch as the alarm buzzed softly. Someone's outside. Joshua grabbed the monitor feed. A single figure was walking up the dirt road. Slowly, hands raised. It was Evangeline. I felt my throat tighten. No, that's impossible. Dad's face turned pale. She found us. Joshua grabbed his phone. I'm calling security. But Dad stopped him. Wait. He stepped toward the window. She's not armed. Dad, don't. He ignored me, opening the front door. The desert wind whipped through the doorway as Evangeline stepped closer, her face calm, almost sad. Stephen, she said softly, it's time. Time for what? He demanded. For you to finish what you started. Before I could move, she reached into her coat and pulled out another flash drive. This one marked with a single word, Aegis. What is that? I asked. The original code, she said. The real threat. Helios rebuilt Aegis after you left. They're deploying it next month under a new name, Project Prometheus. It'll give them full access to every digital system in the country. Dad's eyes went wide. That's impossible. Not anymore, she said. You built the foundation, Stephen. You can stop it. He hesitated. Why help us now? Her expression softened. Because I thought I was cleaning up corruption. But all I did was protect it. I'm tired. Joshua whispered she's telling the truth. The metadata on that drive, it's government-level encryption. Evangeline turned to me. Vivian, if they launch Prometheus, every private company in America, every person, will be under surveillance. You're the only one with the tech to block it. I took the drive slowly. Then we stop it. She smiled faintly. You always were your father's daughter. Before anyone could say another word, headlights appeared on the horizon. Dozens of them racing toward us. Dad's voice was urgent. They found her. Helios. Evangeline's eyes met mine. Run. I grabbed my parents and Joshua, pulling them toward the back door as gunfire erupted outside. The windows shattered. Joshua shouted, "Get to the car!" But before we reached it, Evangeline turned back, covering us with suppressing fire from a pistol she'd hidden in her coat. Go, she yelled. I'll hold them off. Evangeline. I screamed. You'll die. She smiled sadly. I already have. The last thing I saw before we dove into the car was her silhouette in the headlights, fighting alone against the approaching storm. We sped down the dirt road, bullets pinging off the car's metal frame. Joshua swerved hard, tires spitting gravel. Where are we going? He shouted. Phoenix, I said. We upload the Aegis code to the press before Helios can bury it. Mom clutched Dad's arm. Steven, what if she's right? What if they're launching that thing? Dad stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Then it's already too late. No, I said. Not while we're still breathing. Hours later, we reached the city limits. My laptop sat open in my lap, the flash drive plugged in. The files were massive, lines of code, encrypted blueprints, lists of government liaisons. Joshua kept his eyes on the road. Viv, we can't just leak this. It's national security data. Exactly, I said. And if it goes public, they can't hide it anymore. Dad turned to me. Vivian, if you do this, you'll be hunted for the rest of your life. I looked at him. Then maybe it's time someone hunted them back. He opened his mouth to respond, but before he could, a helicopter's searchlight swept over the car. Joshua cursed. They found us again. I hit upload on the file, my fingers shaking. The progress bar climbed slowly, 12%, 34%, 58%. The helicopter drew closer, its light blinding through the windshield. Dad shouted, faster. Come on, I whispered. The bar reached 99%, and then the screen went black. A system override message appeared. Connection terminated. Remote access denied. I stared in disbelief. They blocked it. Joshua slammed the steering wheel. They're jamming the signal. Dad's voice was low but steady. Then there's only one option left. He pointed toward the desert highway ahead. We take it to the source. I frowned. What do you mean? He looked at me, his expression grim. Helios headquarters. Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was the last place I ever thought I'd be running toward instead of away from. The sky was still dark when our plane touched down at a small private airstrip just outside the city. Joshua had booked it under an alias. No one spoke the entire flight. The hum of the engines was the only sound between us, the unspoken question hanging heavy. What would happen when we reached Helios? As we taxied to a stop, Dad stared out the window. His voice was barely a whisper. I spent half my life trying to keep you away from this world. Now I'm dragging you right into it. I reached over and touched his hand. You didn't drag me. I'm here because I chose to be. He gave a weak smile, but I could see the fear behind his eyes. The car Joshua had arranged, a black SUV with tinted windows, was waiting for us. We loaded in quickly, driving through the quiet streets of the capital. The monuments loomed like ghosts in the early dawn light, and for the first time, I felt how small we really were compared to what we were about to face. We go in, find their mainframe, upload the evidence, and get out, I said, my tone sharper than I felt. Joshua nodded from the driver's seat. Easier said than done. Helios headquarters is practically a fortress. Dad's voice was steady. I still remember the layout. There's an underground data hub, accessible through the old research wing. If they haven't remodeled, that's our best shot. Mom looked at him sharply. You're not planning to go in there yourself, are you? He didn't answer, which was answer enough. By the time we reached the outskirts of Arlington, the sun was rising, painting the glass towers gold. Helios defense system stood at the heart of a secure compound, modern, sleek, and terrifyingly sterile. Joshua parked several blocks away. We can't just walk through the front door, he said. I know, I replied. We're not. I pulled out my phone and opened a program my engineers had built for emergency network breaches, something that could override basic security protocols for 60 seconds at a time. We used this to force open an access gate. Dad's eyes widened. You've had that all along. Old habits, I said with a half smile. Being called a failed daughter makes you resourceful. Joshua chuckled. Remind me never to underestimate you. Too late for that, I said, then exhaled slowly. Let's move. We slipped through a side gate and crossed into the compound's industrial zone. The morning shift hadn't started yet, but surveillance drones hummed overhead, scanning the area in silent arcs of blue light. Dad, led us toward a maintenance tunnel near the old research wing. It was narrow, dark, and smelled like rust and damp earth. My heartbeat echoed in the confined space. This tunnel used to connect to the lower archives, Dad whispered. They shut it down years ago after an accident. Perfect place for secrets, Joshua murmured. We crawled through the final stretch and emerged into a dimly lit corridor. A massive steel door stood at the far end, glowing faintly with biometric locks. I turned to Dad. Can you still access it? He pressed his palm against the scanner. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the panel flickered green. Joshua grinned. Guess they never removed you from the system. Dad sighed. Or they never expected me to come back. The door slid open with a low hiss. The room beyond was like something out of a sci-fi film. Rows of servers stretching into the distance, pulsing with cold blue light. The hum of machinery filled the air. This is it, I whispered. The Aegis mainframe. Joshua moved quickly, connecting my laptop to a nearby port. Uploading the files now. I plugged in Evangeline's flash drive. The screen filled with code, streaming faster than I could read. Lines of Helios encryption unraveled one by one, revealing years of hidden data, classified programs, illegal surveillance logs, contracts with defense agencies worldwide. But before we could finish, a warning flashed across the monitor. Security breach detected. Lockdown in 60 seconds. Crap, Joshua muttered. They've traced the access point. Dad grabbed a keyboard, typing furiously. Keep the upload going. I'll buy you time. Dad. Do it, Vivian, he barked. I froze for a moment, then nodded. Okay. Joshua's voice was tight. 30 seconds. The files kept uploading, 67%, 74%, 88%, as red lights flashed across the room. Then I heard footsteps. Dozens of them. Armed guards poured into the corridor, shouting orders. Hands up. Step away from the console. Mom screamed. Joshua reached for me, but Dad shoved us both aside. Go, he shouted. Finish this. He turned to the guards, raising his hands. You want me? I'm the one who built it. I'm the one you want. Dad, I yelled, struggling against Joshua's grip. He looked back at me, a small, tired smile on his face. You did good, kiddo. Then the guards swarmed him, forcing him to his knees. Joshua pulled me into the service tunnel, just as more alarms blared. I could hear Mom crying behind us, whispering his name over and over. We crawled back through the tunnel, the sound of gunfire echoing faintly behind us. By the time we reached the car, my laptop was still running. The upload had completed. Joshua's hands were shaking as he started the engine. We got it. I nodded numbly. Every file. It's all there. He stepped on the gas. Then we leak it before they can spin the story. We drove to a safe Wi-Fi point near DuPont Circle, uploading everything to every major news outlet and whistleblower network I could think of: WikiLeaks, encrypted press portals, independent journalists. By the time the sun was fully up, the world knew about Helios Defense Systems, Project Aegis, and the government's illegal surveillance program. I sat back in the seat, staring at the rising light. Joshua turned to me. Viv, your dad. I cut him off, my throat tight. He made his choice. Within hours, chaos erupted online. News anchors couldn't stop talking about the Helios leak. Politicians demanded answers. Anonymous sources within the government confirmed the documents were authentic. But amid the noise, a single photo circulated, grainy security footage from inside Helios HQ. My father being led away in handcuffs, head held high. Mom saw it first. He's alive, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. He's alive. I nodded, though my heart ached. For now. Joshua looked out the window. You think they'll let him walk free? No, I said. But he bought us time. Enough to expose them. He nodded slowly. So what happens next? I turned my gaze toward the Capitol in the distance, glowing in the morning sun. Now, we rebuild. But first, my phone buzzed. A new message flashed across the screen, an unknown number. You're not done yet. My breath caught. It's her. Joshua frowned. Evangeline. I showed him the screen. The text continued. Helios was just one head of the beast. You want to end this? Meet me in New York. One last move. Joshua muttered, You've got to be kidding me. I felt a chill run through me, but also a strange sense of resolve. She's alive, I said quietly. And she's still playing. Mom looked at me fearfully. Vivian, please, no more. Haven't we lost enough? I met her eyes. If I stop now, everything Dad sacrificed will mean nothing. Joshua sighed. Then I guess we're going to New York. I nodded slowly. The city skyline shimmered in my mind, the final battlefield. Somewhere out there, Evangeline was waiting. And this time I wasn't running. New York felt different this time. Colder. Quieter. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the weight of everything that had happened. The betrayals, the secrets, the lives burned down to reach this moment. Whatever it was, I could feel it pulsing through the air as our jet descended over the skyline. Joshua sat beside me, eyes fixed on the city below. You sure about this, Viv? Meeting Evangeline again. I nodded. She started this. She knows how to end it. Mom had refused to come. She stayed in D.C., hoping Dad's lawyers could reach him before Helios buried him in a black site somewhere. I promised her I'd come back. I wasn't sure I believed it. Joshua checked his watch. She said, one last move. Sounds like a trap. Maybe, I said quietly, but I've been trapped before. This time, I know how to fight my way out. The meeting place was an abandoned observatory on the edge of Brooklyn. Once part of an old university campus, now forgotten, its walls covered in graffiti and time. The city lights glimmered in the distance, like stars that had fallen too close to Earth. I walked in alone. Evangeline was already there, standing by the shattered telescope dome, her coat whipping in the wind. She looked older, tired, but her eyes still burned with that quiet intelligence that made her so dangerous. Vivian, she said softly, almost kindly, you made it. I stopped a few feet away. You said Helios wasn't the only one. What did you mean? She smiled faintly. You think a single company could build something like Aegis without help? There are others, private firms, defense labs, even international investors. Helios was just a contractor. I felt my stomach twist. So who's behind it now? She turned, pointing toward the skyline. They are. Everyone who profits from control. Governments, corporations, the digital gods your generation worships. I crossed my arms. Why tell me this? Why not just disappear? Because, she said quietly, you're the only one who can expose them, and the only one who might understand me. Her voice wavered on the last word, and for the first time, I saw the human beneath the hacker. The regret. The exhaustion. I stepped closer. Then help me. Let's finish what my father started. Her lips curved into a sad smile. That's why I called you. She reached into her coat and handed me a small silver drive. This contains everything, names, accounts, offshore servers, the entire network. If you release it, the world will see the truth. I took it carefully. And what about you? I've done my part, she said. You were right. I was protecting the wrong people. A faint sound broke the silence, footsteps, echoing down the observatory stairs. Evangeline froze. They followed you. No, I said, my blood running cold. They followed you. The door burst open. Armed men in tactical gear flooded the room, guns raised. A red laser danced across my chest. Step away from the suspect, one of them barked. Joshua's voice shouted from outside, Vivian, but he was too far to reach me. Evangeline raised her hand slowly. You don't understand, she said to them. She's not your enemy. The lead officer didn't hesitate. Ma'am, on your knees. Evangeline turned to me, her voice calm amid the chaos. Take the drive. Run. I shook my head. I'm not leaving you. Her eyes softened. Vivian, you can't save me, but you can save everyone else. Then, before I could stop her, she grabbed a flashbang from her belt, where she'd hidden it all along, and pulled the pin. Evangeline, no. A burst of white light and sound filled the room. I stumbled backward, vision blurring, ears ringing. When I opened my eyes again, she was gone, and the soldiers were down, disoriented. Joshua rushed in, grabbing my arm. Come on. We sprinted out of the observatory, the city wind hitting us like a slap. Sirens wailed in the distance. I clutched the silver drive to my chest as we ducked into an alleyway. Joshua looked at me, breathless. Please tell me you still have it. I held it up. Right here. He exhaled. Then we finished this. We found refuge in a small apartment above a bakery in Queens, one of Erica's safe houses. I connected the drive to my laptop. The data inside was massive. Lists of corporations, shell companies, and coded communications between Helios executives and high-ranking government officials. Joshua read over my shoulder. This could bring down half of Washington. That's the idea, I said. But as I scrolled deeper, something caught my eye. A folder labeled Project Seraph. I opened it. Inside was a document signed months ago. My breath caught when I saw the names. Primary contractors, Helios Defense Systems, Etherlink Technologies. I froze. Joshua's eyes widened. That's your company. I felt my stomach twist. No, that's impossible. We don't work with them. But the proof was right there. Contracts, digital signatures, offshore payments. My name was on one of them. They forged it, Joshua said quickly. They had to. Maybe, I whispered. But if the world sees this without context, they'll think I was part of it. He looked at me, realization dawning. Evangeline knew. I swallowed hard. She wasn't just giving me a weapon. She was testing me. By morning, every major news outlet in the world was buzzing with the Helios leaks. The government launched emergency hearings. Stock markets crashed. Whistleblowers came forward. But alongside the headlines, another story emerged, one painting me as a co-conspirator. Tech CEO linked to military surveillance program, one article read. Is Vivian Collins hero or hypocrite? My phone exploded with messages, reporters, employees, even old classmates wanting the truth. Joshua looked at me across the table. We can fight this. Prove it's fake. I shook my head. No, we don't fight it. He frowned. What? I turned the laptop toward him. We release everything. Every email. Every transaction. Even the ones that make me look bad. The truth isn't clean, Joshua. But it's all we've got. He hesitated, then nodded slowly. Then let's do it. Together, we uploaded the full archive, not to the press, but directly to the public. No filters, no spin, just the raw truth. Hours later, I stood on the balcony watching the sunrise over the East River. My phone buzzed again, another message, unknown number. Well played. I smiled faintly. Evangeline. Joshua stepped beside me, coffee in hand. Think she's still out there? I nodded. People like her don't just disappear. They become ghosts. He sipped his coffee. So what now? I looked at the city below, alive with chaos and change. Now we rebuild, but not the way we did before. Etherlink will stay transparent, every line of code, every partnership, open for the world to see. If we're going to make tech for humanity, it has to start with honesty. Joshua smiled. Your dad would be proud. I blinked back tears. I hope so. My phone rang again, Mom. I answered, voice trembling. Vivian, she said softly. They released your father this morning. I froze. He's safe. They're calling him a whistleblower. The president himself ordered his release. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. Then I laughed, really laughed, for the first time in months. He did it. He actually did it. Mom's voice wavered. He wants to see you. I'll be home soon, I said. Tell him I kept my promise.